Hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for your patience. I'm Erin. I'm the co-host. I am the podcast producer here at BGL. We'll be bringing Ben on in just a second once everybody has arrived. So everybody join, text your friends, get them on the challenge. Wow. There's a lot of you joining. Nice. Okay, so let me give you the official welcome, and then I will ask Ben to join us. So welcome everybody to the Life Optimization Challenge. In case you missed it earlier, I'm Erin. I'm the podcast producer here at BGL, and I'll be your co-host, which means I'll get to see your lovely faces before Ben jumps on. He's probably doing some jumping jacks or some push-ups, getting ready to talk to all of you. So quick shout out to everybody. Congratulations for taking this step towards optimizing all the different areas of your life. This is going to be an amazing week, and I think all of your lives will change over this week. So here's how the challenge is going to work. Every day, Ben is going to give a couple of practical lessons, probably more than a couple because he's Ben Greenfield. At the end of each day, there's going to be homework. You must do your homework. Even if your dog tries to eat it, you must do your homework. At the end of each day, there will be, or also after the homework, we highly encourage everybody to be interacting with each other on the Facebook group, right? So this is a supportive community. Feel free to share what you're experiencing, how you're optimizing those different areas of your life. And then I'll close out with a little bit of tough love because frankly, it's Ben Greenfield. He's hardcore. We're all here to make a change. He's giving us his time. So let's listen up. Let's do it. So there's really no point in watching the lessons if you're not going to do the homework or interact with the community. So please do so. And we'll finish up with a good quote. There's no greatness without action. And if you aren't going to achieve results in this challenge, you're not going to receive results in this challenge without committing to it. So let's get started. That's enough housekeeping. And here's the main event. Ben, are you ready to roll?
Whoa, I guess I am. After that introduction, I don't know. I feel like I'm not hardcore enough and didn't do enough burpees or cold bathing this morning after your introduction, Erin. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm as tough as Erin made me sound, and that I am still wondering if I should have had an extra cup of coffee this morning. It's actually kind of interesting because we're talking about today, specifically, as you'll learn if you don't know already, we're talking about time and time management. And this is an odd day for me because I actually am one of those guys, and you can raise your hand if you fall into this category, if you're a guy or a girl who's into routines, like morning routines, for example. And that's something I'm very into. As a matter of fact, I usually don't have any calls or like formal work scheduled besides like my writing and personal tasks, typically until about, 9:30 a.m. or so Pacific time. Well, here I am at about 7:30 hopping on for a call with all of you lovely folks. So it is interesting that I'm talking about time and calendaring while breaking my own rules about time and calendaring. And, the reason that, for example, I have that rule set up for myself, which I understand is something that if you are self-employed or you can run your own schedule, which I can often do, is something that some people aren't able to do. But the reason that I have that, and the reason that I think regardless of whether you got to start work at 7 or 8 or 9, you need to carve out some of that morning time, is because of the whole concept of what I think some people, back to, I suppose, Erin's wonderful Navy SEAL analogy, would call eating the frog. I forget where I first heard that, but it's this concept of doing the most difficult task of the day first. And I have a secret to share with you. It's that I find work like really easy, like incredibly motivating. Like if I were allowed to do what I really, I think, wanted to do in terms of just my lizard reptile brain when I get up out of bed in the morning, it would be to work. It would be to like jump into that dopaminergic surge of checking emails and getting things done and getting tasks done and shooting videos and recording podcasts. What's hard for me is actually to wake up in the morning and have the self-control to leave the phone off, to read my Bible, to pray, to meditate, to do a little bit of foam rolling to free up some body parts, to grab my cup of coffee, to go into my office, to open up a blank word processor note or WordPress note or Google Doc, to actually do some deep writing or thinking or journaling, to finish that, to go gather my family in the living room, even though, again, I really just want to go work and get things done, but to instead sit with my sons and wife on the living room floor and talk together and talk about the day and hug each other and meditate and sometimes do breath work, sometimes pray, sometimes read something that's uplifting. And then it's like, 7:15, 7:30 a.m. and I still haven't actually started to do all the things that I really want to do. Like, I want to go crush the world. I want to go be productive. And yet I've still carved out that time for the self-care, for the stuff that's actually difficult for me. And then after that, I use the restroom. And then I go and I do a workout. And then after I've done my workout, I come back in and I start to get ready for the day and I make myself breakfast. And then by that time, it's getting close to 9:30 and I'm beginning to prepare to actually get on my first calls and work for the day. But, at that point, I've been up for anywhere from 3 to 4 hours, just basically preparing my body, preparing my vessel to go out and make an impact. And then once work starts, boom, it's like a race car that's been tuned and is ready to drive and is ready to handle anything that the world throws at it. And it's boom, 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 deep work until typically about 1:30. And then I'm often still working, doing phone calls, doing emails, kind of like lighter work, etc., during lunch. And then I take a quick nap. And then boom, once I get that nap, that second day, and we'll get a chance to talk about naps and siestas and the daily routine at some point during this course. We'll learn a whole lot more in the master class about all my little strategies for that. But at that point, the second day begins. And again, boom, 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 deep work for 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours until 6 or 6:30 rolls around. And then I begin to wind down for family time. And so the reason I just want to give you that brief glimpse is because today we are talking about time management. I'm answering your questions about daily routines. And it's kind of interesting because some people are like, well, Ben, those, 2, 3, 4 hours you spent in the morning doing things before you actually started work, couldn't you have gotten a whole lot done during that time? Well, the answer is yes. But what I tell people is I do not want to be some wealthy, successful, highly impactful CEO or world changer whose body and brain completely falls apart when I'm 40 or 45 or 50 because I did what I've seen a lot of my friends and a lot of other people in the industry do: ride your body to the ground like a race car that you've never pulled in for a pit stop or for an engine tune-up. And then you reach a point in your life where you have cancer or a heart attack, or you realize that you couldn't do that triathlon you dreamed of because you can't even run around the block. And your spiritual life has fallen to pieces. You're disconnected from God. You have a divorce. Your kids are estranged from you because they barely ever saw you. And you just basically feel like, pardon the expression, complete and total shiat. And the reason for that is because you didn't have a routine to care for your body, to care for your spirit, to care for your community, to care for your relationships, to care for your mind. And it's playing the long game. It's passing the marshmallow test. It's saying, hey, I've got this Ferrari. I can either redline it at 120 miles per hour for the next year, at which point I got to send it back off to Italy for repairs and maybe never see it again. Or I can take really, really good care of this race car and drive it for the next 50 years of my life and have it be like one of those cool old restored muscle cars that you'll see in some fancy car collector's garage that they can take out on the highway and it works just as good, 50 years later as it did on day one, right? That's what we're going after. That's what we're going after when we talk about time management. And so I'm going to come back now. I'm going to rewind and come back to why we're all here in the first place, beyond just this concept of time management, which is a focus of today. And the reason is what I like to call the gap. Now, when I say the gap, some of you who are well-read might be familiar with Dan Sullivan's excellent book called The Gap in the Game. It's a great book. It goes into this concept of sometimes the expectations that we set for ourselves are so high or unrealistic or unachievable or illogical that we can essentially think ourselves or goal ourselves into unhappiness. Meaning, like, let's say I decide I want to get fit, and I'm like, to get fit, I'm going to work out 2 hours a day for the next 3 months. Well, I could have said, I'm going to go on a 20-minute walk and do 100 push-ups a day, right? And that would have been far more achievable by painting myself into that corner of a huge gap that stands between me and my gain. I'm setting myself up for a lot of unhappiness during all of those days in which there's no way I can achieve that unrealistic goal of working out for 2 hours. It's a very simple example. But that's what Dan Sullivan's book, The Gap and the Gain, is about. What I'm talking about more specifically, though, in this case, when I'm using the term the gap, is the idea that you're at a certain place right now, and you're going to be at a certain place by the time that you've completed this challenge, this 6-day life optimization challenge. So you are going to cover a lot of distance in terms of the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be if you participate each day and if you do the homework that Aaron's going to lay out for you at the end of each session. And you're going to basically learn a lot, you're going to cover a lot, but it's not just about learning and listening. I actually have a term for that. I didn't make up this term. I forget who I heard it from, but it's basically called the content zombie. A content zombie is a person who takes like all the master classes, reads all the books, listens to all the podcasts at 1.75x speed, listens to all the audiobooks, goes to all the events and the conferences and sits at the front row in all the sessions, but never actually takes action, right? They're like, man, I know so much about loving my wife or loving my husband or, educating my children or caring for my body and biohacking and seeing the sunrise and seeing the sunset and how good that is for circadian rhythm. But they're never actually taking their kids on one-on-one dates or, carving out time to in full presence be with their spouse or watching the sunrise or watching the sunset or working out or they're just consuming content because it makes them feel good that they know a whole lot about what they should be doing without actually doing it. Don't be that person, right? You want to get the content and not paint yourself into the corner of having so much content that you're confused and don't know what to do. But you get the content that you know is going to help you. And with laser focus on that one piece of content, you then go, you take action, you do the homework. And that's how your life changes. So people are in different stages. Like you might be in stage 1, and that's where you might just be feeling lost. You don't know what your goals are or your dreams. Maybe you have a victim mentality. You're like, gosh, this world is giving me a difficult deck of cards, and I'm not quite sure what to do here. And, and maybe you aren't even looking into personal growth to change your life, right? A lot of you probably, if you're on this challenge, you are probably not even in stage 1, right? You're probably in stage 2 already, which means that you've succeeded a little bit in a couple different areas of your life. Maybe you've established a good career for yourself. Maybe you've established some good fitness or health or nutrition or family or relationship or spiritual goals. And now you're committed to kind of taking the next step to keep improving, right? Like you've drug yourself out of the blame and shame ditch. You're like, all right, tell me what I got to do to improve. And you're in stage 2, but there are 4 stages. It gets even better. In stage 3, you realize that success in 1 or 2 areas, like let's say fitness or nutrition, is not necessarily what makes you happy and fulfilled. And you're at the point where I probably was about 8 years ago, where you're like, hey, this is great. Life is pretty good, but there's this deep gnawing inside of you that there must be something more than this. I must exist for a greater reason than what I'm doing right now. And don't let the world tell you that's some messed up psychological DSM manual midlife crisis, right? That deep yearning or longing to make greater impact, to be a better human, to optimize more areas of life than just say maybe just your finances or just your relationships or just your health or just your spirituality. That's normal. That's expected. And congratulations. That means you're ready to be a very impactful, world-changing person. And I consider it to be my responsibility to help you along the way because I've made these same discoveries over the past near decade to get me into what I would say is close to stage 4, right? Like I'm growing into stage 4 myself personally. And that's deep fulfillment and meaning because I, as I wish for you, am discovering how to optimize every area of life. My health, my fitness, my relationships, my spirituality, my connection, my education, my meaning, my legacy, my finances. Basically, all of the things that you're going to learn from me in short form during this life optimization challenge and in even longer form during the masterclass that'll be opening up really soon. You're going to learn how to optimize in every area of life and achieve that really deep and true and lasting fulfillment. So you can see here, open the kimono. I've got notes. I actually, believe it or not, I don't have a mind like a steel trap. And there are certain things. Well, let me put it this way. This probably comes as no surprise to you. I will like go down rabbit holes and lead you guys on all sorts of teaching adventures because I love to teach and I love to tell stories. And then I'll look at my clock and it's like 2 hours and all of you are getting fired from your jobs because you missed work in my silly life optimization challenge. So I've got notes to keep me on track here. So today's lesson is about mastering your time and freedom. It's about mastering your time and freedom. And the reason for that is because of what I've already walked you through. If you have routines set up in place and you become a master of your time based on those routines, those rituals, and those daily habits, I'm going to share a few with you here shortly, then you have a great deal of freedom over your life. Because you can get money and you can get belongings, you can get new jobs, and you can get health, you can get fitness, but you can't get time, right? Time is a very valuable commodity, and you got to learn how to manage it properly. And I think that a lot of people fritter away a lot of hours and lose a lot of meaning and impact because of poor time management strategies. And I want to help you out with that quite a bit. So I want you to write in the chat for me how much of your time you think you own right now. And I want you to basically just give me like a 1 to 10 scale, how in control you feel over your days, your routines, the way you spend your hours, the way you spend your minutes, the fulfillment that you derive from those, and just like how connected you feel to your management of time overall. So just give me a ranking, 10 being like, I'm on top of it, I'm a total guru. You know, I memorized the entire what's it called? The Art of Getting Things Done, or the I think that's what it's called, the Art of Getting Things Done. I could be wrong. But anyways, I'm a total time master. That's a 10. And then a 1 is like, dude, I wake up, it's like a Muppet. I'm all over the map. I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm flailing all day. I get to the end of the day. I ask myself, what the heck just went on? And then I fall asleep and I wake up the next morning and I do it again. I'll give you a second to write that down, what you think that would be. Seeing some 8s, some 6s, some 7s, some 10s. I think I saw a 0 go by there, but somehow you still made it onto the call. So I'm going to tell you a story as you're typing this in. I used to be like a total animal. I took 30 plus credits a semester in college. I had to like be one of those guys who would appeal to take extra credits at college every semester. I worked on average 4 to 5 jobs per semester, you know, personal trainer, nutritionist, barista, bartender, worked at a French bakery in the morning selling people chocolate croissants and croque monsoise dripping with melted cheese. And then I'd like train those same people in the evening at the gym across the street from the French bakery and go to classes all day in between, you know, and, you know, taught sports camps all summer, had a tennis coaching business, you know, worked at a variety of different coffee shops and restaurants and was just all over the map. And I thought that you could just crush life by not sleeping. So I slept like 3 or 4 hours a night, you know, even after I graduated from college and started a business and began opening up all these personal training studios and gyms. I would like moonlight building my online business. You could ask my wife. I'd get home from training all my clients like 9, and I'd stay up until 2 or 3 a.m. designing everything from my affiliate campaigns to teaching myself PPC to doing all my copywriting to managing all my websites to coding my own scripts for my WordPress themes. I mean, I was doing everything. It's kind of funny because at this point in my life, I've given away the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. I don't even know how to log into like the back end of my own website, right? But this was, and really for me, that's good because I'm such a micromanager. If I knew how to do all the stuff I used to know how to do, I would drive my team absolutely nuts in terms of just like literally wanting to do everything. Because that's how I was. I was just like, hey, I can do it all. Why not? I can teach myself how to do it all. I love to learn, so I'm just going to do it all. Horrific time management. It wasn't until I was on my way to participate in the short course World Triathlon Championships up in Vancouver, BC, driving with a friend of mine and listening to an audiobook called The 4-Hour Work Week, that the idea of delegation and outsourcing actually came up from Tim Ferriss. I actually remember the day that I opened up a Craigslist ad in Manila, Philippines, and asked for someone who could help me with research, with some graphic design, with helping me out with some of the clients who I was coaching at the time in terms of my communication with them, and helping me out with some of my website maintenance. I hired a gal named Marge. Some of you have worked with me in coaching or worked with my company probably have seen Marge's name. You might have communicated with her, for example, if you've hired me as a coach or to do consulting or something like that. And Marge still works with me. What's it been, like probably 16, 17 years, something like that. And since then, I've built a team of amazing people around me so that I can really focus on doing the things that I not only love to do, but that I do best and that are realistic for me. Right? Like I love to write. I love to teach like I'm doing right now. I love to podcast and research new guests. I love to build network and relationship capital by going to events and making new friends in the health industry or the nutrition or the longevity industry. I love to write articles. I love to write books. And so, in short, I consider myself to be a teacher and a storyteller. And I would say increasingly a leader, even though I'm still learning, at 41 years old, how to do that better. But, storyteller, teacher, and leader, that's where I think I can shine best. And so I delegate and I outsource and I build a team around me to do a lot of the other stuff. And that allows me to have the freedom of time to actually be engaged in other activities, whether that be fitness or, bow hunting or spearfishing or hiking or playing tennis or pickleball or playing my guitar or whatever. And so delegation and outsourcing is really one big light bulb moment that went on for me. I would like to hear from you in the chat. How many of you delegate or outsource, have hired some kind of an assistant, have even considered like, well, I really want to write a book. What if I invest some time in hiring someone to mow my lawn, that kid down the street to mow my lawn, and I'm going to pay like $45 a week so that I can have an extra 2 hours per week to be able to work on this book that I really want to work on. That's just a simple example. And yes, I've outsourced mowing my lawn. And yes, sometimes I feel like an underachiever when I'm inside riding and I look outside and can see Steve mowing my lawn. But nonetheless, I just do it anyways because I know that I can't do everything. So I'd love to hear how many of you delegate, how many of you outsource. Write in the chat. And what do you do when you delegate, when you outsource? How do you do that? Who have you hired? What's your process? I'm just curious how many of you guys do it, because you don't have to kill yourself doing it all, as someone on Instagram Live just noted. Like, for me, the biggest barrier I can tell you guys right now was, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to pay for somebody to do these things that I can do myself for free? It sounds silly when I repeat that, because of course, by putting the initial investment, and sometimes I'm not a Dave Ramsey cash is king guy. Sometimes I say, yeah, go into credit card debt to invest in something that allows you to get the freedom of time to then be able to do way more financially or legacy wise or relationship wise. That's way, way bigger than that small amount of debt or that money you had to borrow to hire somebody to get the ball rolling on you pursuing your dream and what it is that you really want to be doing and how it is that you really want to be spending your time. So I even consider delegation outsourcing no longer to be a waste of money, but to be an investment in time and investment in resources. So I'm going to tell you another story, and that is this idea of a second brain. I learned this concept from my friend Ari Meisel. He wrote a book, I believe it's called Work Less, Do More. He taught me this concept of an external brain. So it's very simple. I used to have a constant, never-ending checklist of everything that I wanted to get done. Call this person, do this, write this article, read this book, go on this call, remember this conference call on Tuesday. And it was just basically, my mom used to write in her hand. So I was writing on my hand all through college. My hands were just covered in ink. And then it was real paper and like these, little moleskin style notebooks that I carry around with me. And then it was Evernote. And now it's just a notes app, just a simple OS notes app synced to my phone, my computer, and any of my devices. On that notes app, anytime I think of anything, whether it's the middle of the night or during lunch or whatever, I write it down in that notes app, right? So that notes app is basically a list of a whole bunch of stuff. And then at 3 different intervals throughout the day, in the morning when I wake up and I'm at my computer at the first thing, sipping my coffee, at lunch, and then at some point in the evening, and it depends on how dinner plans are going. Sometimes it's before dinner, sometimes it's after dinner. I have another program called BusyCal. It's a calendar management system. I go into BusyCal and I transfer all of those notes in, set up with reminders, so I know when I'm going to do what. Right, do this Monday, do this Tuesday. Hey, this pops up Wednesday. Call this person Thursday. Now, sometimes because I have an assistant, I'm emailing that note to the assistant to put onto the calendar if it's something that they need to merge with a whole bunch of other appointments and stuff. Sometimes I'm putting it in there myself if it's more of a personal item. And then I'm inevitably asked this question, what about something that can't be calendared? Like, check out this book, right? It's not like I'm just going to say, like, read this book Tuesday night. That stuff stays on the note, but it's there. And I know it's not rolling up around in my brain to forget about. And anytime I have free time, right? And I actually have it categorized. My notes is like things to read, things to listen to, classes to take, things to research, people to call, right? All those things that I know are just going to fall into free time as it frees up. Like, hey, I'm going to go on a 2-hour walk on Saturday and I'm going to call these 5 people who are under the people to call part of my notes app. It's simple for me. It works. And it allows me to have this external brain and then to schedule everything because now I ruthlessly manage my calendar. I mean, anybody who's tried to get an appointment with me and said, hey, Ben's got an appointment 8 weeks from now on October 30th at, 10:45 a.m. for 20 minutes knows that I ruthlessly manage and protect my time. Because it allows me to keep a clear head and not have thoughts jumbling around in my head. It allows me to, as I mentioned earlier, take care of the Ferrari of the body that will allow me to go late into life and make maximum impact. And it allows me to prioritize in a proper way relationships, time, work, God, family, etc. Because if it's just a never-ending checklist, I'm going to tell you something that a guy who's featured in my parenting book, Chad Johnson, said when I was at dinner with him one night. He said, Ben, your business will eat you alive. The emails will never stop coming. The appointments will never stop coming. The to-dos, the asks, the lists, the content, all of that stuff will never stop coming. So you got to set up barriers. You got to set up barriers. And your list of priorities with your barriers goes like this. Number 1 is your spirit, your connection with God. Number 2 is your connection to your spouse, because if you and your spouse don't have your oxygen mask on first, you're not going to be able to take care of the rest of the family. Number 3 is your children and your family, if you have them. Number 4 is your health, so that you don't drop dead of a heart attack or die of cancer when you're 50 because you've spent so much time redlining for your business. And number 5, you guessed it, is your business. Number 5 is your business. Think about that for a second. If you want to, write it into the chat. What's your order of priorities? Right? What's the first thing that you do? So think about that. You got God. You got relationship/family. You got health, and you got business. What's your priority? I'm just curious. Just curious about how you're prioritizing things and how you're protecting your time. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. So, I want to say one last thing before I hand it back over to Aaron here, and then we have a little Q&A and homework. And the thing that I'm sometimes asked that I would be remiss not to address is, well, Ben, you have everything set up so rigidly, right? You have, from the time you wake up and the personal care in the morning to the business really starting at 9:30 to the deep work through the day, to the lunchtime emails and calls, to the nap, to the work the rest of the day, to the family time, to the dinner, to the getting the calendar all mapped out for the next day and the next week, and then bedtime, and then wake up the next morning and do it again. Like, what about creativity? What about flexibility? What about, like, if your friend calls you up and they're like, hey, dude, want to play pickleball? And you're like, oh, how about 3 months from now on Thursday, the 17th at 2 p.m.? So my fix for this, and this might be me coming from like a religious, but I think there's something to be said for this habit, is I have one day per week that is set aside for just like, if I want to say yes, I say yes. If I want to not do what I thought I was going to do and go play Frisbee golf for 2 hours, I do it. If I want to practice my guitar for literally like 2 hours and just sit there with my guitar with no guilt feelings at all about missing anything, I do it. So for me, that's Sundays, right? So I have what many people call a Sabbath, others will call a rest day. So I have one day per week that is my recharge, my reboot, my flex time day, my creative day. And when I combine that with protecting my schedule in the morning, so that if I want to write for 20 minutes on some fiction book or some article that doesn't have to do with health or fitness, I can do it. So if I want to work out, I can do it. If I want to hit the sauna and the cold plunge, I can do it. I combine that with at 7 p.m., even though I sometimes do work after dinner, like last night, I was breaking my own rules. Part of it was because this master class and this challenge you guys are in right now, but I was up until about like 10:30 last night, replying to emails and getting things done. And that's pretty uncommon for me. Usually when 7 p.m. rolls around, even though I will occasionally like check email before I go to bed to make sure there's no fires that I need to put out for the next day or anything to address, I also have a ton of family time, family game time, family music, cooking, dinner prep, and just being with family, typically from 7 until 9 p.m. each night. And so I do really protect that family time in the evenings as well. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I'm often asked about flexibility and creativity and not being too rigid. So anyways, I've been going on now for a little while, for about a half hour. And I want to respect your time and make sure that we stick to schedule. So this is, and by the way, during each of these life optimization challenges, I'm going to talk to you for about a half hour or so, and then I'm going to turn things back over to Aaron. But the last thing I want to know as we're making this transition back over to Aaron, who's going to give you a little bit of a recap, is I want you to write down, based on that last point I made, where you have carved out time to be your creative, free-form, unrigid self, and whether you have time during the week to like learn a new sport or play a musical instrument or read fiction or have family time. Like, where's your creative flex time? And if not, I highly recommend that you have something like early morning routine, evening routine, and 1 day a week free. And that works really, really well. I think that's a really good scenario. So I'd be curious to hear how you guys manage your flex time and your creative time. So that being said, Aaron, I'm going to turn things back over to you here. And we've got some homework and a little recap. And then for those of you who are the VIP folks, we're going to go into our Q&A.
Thanks, Ben. That was awesome. I had my notebook and I have, well, let's just say I'm a 7. I have work to do. I'm not a 10 yet. Okay, so a little bit of homework. Homework is fun, remember? Not bad, not sad. It's fun. So let's do this homework. So you're going to share the following items in your group. What's a personal takeaway from what you heard today? So something that kind of hit you personally and you're like, whoa, I guess I really need to work on that. I could think of something immediately. For me, I haven't decided if, I know I'm putting God first. I'm not sure if it's relationships, then family, then relationships. I don't know. I feel responsible for holding all of that together a lot of the time. And then from 1 to 10, share what you shared with Ben, how much you feel you're in control of your time. And then what kinds of things have you delegated in your life? If you're one of those people who have taken that step to delegate things in your life, share it with people. If you're not, you can ask the group, like, how did you do it? Even if you didn't think you had money, what made it worth it? Or what was your experience once you kind of dug in your pockets and decided to do that act of delegation? Like, how did that work out? I never thought I would have someone cleaning my house, but hey, I get a lot more done for Ben because someone cleans my house now. So I'm very grateful for them. I just put a little note in here about second brain, work less, do more, in case you want to go out and check that out. Map out your current daily schedule. As it is today, what is your current daily schedule? Sit and think about that for a few minutes. And then think about and write down as well, what would you like it to look like? What would be ideal? Then take it the next step. Write down what you think your ideal week would look like. Share all that in the group, have some discussions. That way you can come back tomorrow for another step. And then that piece that Ben just added, were you when you're creating your ideal week, where are you carving out time for you, for your creative brain, for that flex time that we all frankly need? So that's it. That's the homework.
Hey, Aaron, real quick question.
Yeah.
Is that, because that was, I think, like 5 or 6 things. Are those written down somewhere where, in case people didn't have a chance to write everything down that you just said, that they'll be able to look at that homework after our session today?
Yeah, we can provide those to everyone for
awesome.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah. And then let's see. Yeah, that's it. That's it for today. We'll write it down for everyone to see. We'll post it in all the various channels that you watched today. And then I'll go ahead and close out this lesson. But for anybody who is part of the VIP program or bought the VIP program, you can head on over to Zoom for the Q&A. And that'll be it for today.
Bye, thank you, Aaron. And thank you, everybody. So, hey, tomorrow, same time, same place, we'll do it. And yeah, and then like Aaron said, wherever you saw this, just check back and we'll get the homework up for you within the next hour or so for you to be able to jump in, and you'll have a good 24 hours because I want you to do this today. 24 hours to get that homework done. Do it. I don't want you guys to be C+ students or B- students. We got A+ers here, so we'll get the homework done. However you want to do it, dictating, writing, talking with your family at night and taking notes, whatever floats your boat. Just answer those questions so that you know where you're at, because if you know where you're at, you know where you can be and you can get there. All right. Thanks, Aaron.